I'm going to reminisce with you and tell you things that you didn't know that happened in the 7 years that we shot over 150 Dukes of Hazzard episodes.
The ensemble of Dukes of Hazzard was thought to have the same Southern charm and fraternal camaraderie behind the scenes as they had in front of the camera by fans for years. However, one well-liked actor made a vow he would never break. A ruling so definitive was made by James Best, who is famous for playing Sheriff Rosco P. Coltrane. So intimate that even those closest to the show were taken aback. And now, at last, the truth about what actually transpired is out. James Best was the Dukes of Hazzard's beating heart to millions of viewers. He was hilarious, erratic, and a constant source of quotes in his role as Sheriff Rosco P. Coltrane. His distinctive slogans and exaggerated demeanors become essential components of the show's allure. Rosco added vitality and charm to every scene. Whether he was conspiring with Boss Hogg in the town square or pursuing the Duke boys in another doomed patrol car. The man who played him, however, was far more serious behind the humorous exterior. James Best was not your typical TV personality. He was already known as one of Hollywood's most reliable character performers before he wore the Hazzard County badge. He starred in dozens of films and over 600 TV series over the years. He starred with James Stewart in Winchester 73, trained under the renowned Lee Strasberg, and competed with Paul Newman in The Left-Handed Gun. In addition, he was a well-known acting instructor who trained future celebrities like Gary Busey and Quentin Tarantino. Basically, the person who knows the industry the best. Therefore, he wasn't only there to play a dumb sheriff when he joined the Dukes of Hazzard. He contributed professionalism, decades of experience, and a profound regard for the art. Others may have approached the concert purposefully, while others might have seen it as a fun paycheck. He made Rosco into somebody special, someone that children could love and laugh at. It was no coincidence that heart and nonsense were mixed together. The best improvised jokes, revised language, and consistently demanded better content. He gave the role everything he had. That passion was respected by the majority of the staff and cast. The actress who played Daisy Duke, Catherine Bach, frequently complimented Best on his mentoring. Another veteran actor with Best's traditional ideals was Denver Pyle, who played Uncle Jesse. Indeed, there was a lot of fun on set, but there was also a definite recognition that Best required a certain amount of discipline. Regretfully, not everyone lived up to that expectation. As the popularity of the series increased, tensions started to appear. People's egos battled, and fame changed them. One castmate's actions were just intolerable to a man like James Best, who had dedicated decades to honing his craft. It would be a breaking point rather than merely a disagreement, one that permanently altered his connection to the show. The Dukes of Hazzard are typically associated with bright sunlight, V8 engines roaring, and the naughty Duke boys running away. However, beneath that smooth exterior was a strain that was more pervasive than any gravel road in Hazzard County. Off-screen arguments were hidden by on-screen friendship, and the conflict increased along with the show's popularity. The series was a huge success from the start. Store shelves were stocked with stuff, ratings skyrocketed, and fans begged for more. However, Roscoe's slapstick sheriff, James Best, did not approach unexpected celebrity with mindless excitement. He was an actor from a bygone period, taught by Lee Strasberg. His approach to work was solemn, orderly, and even subdued. This method occasionally ran afoul of other methods, particularly when the younger actors began treating situations more like photo shoots or improv stages. Production proceeded quickly. Frequently, lines were changed at the last minute. Pressure to provide more stunts, action, and comedy increased when scenes were rescheduled. It was exciting to many. At best, it occasionally seemed reckless, as if artistic merit were being foregone in favor of show. One day, among the constant grumbling, missed cues, shoddy rehearsals, and ego-driven improvisation, he would find that they had omitted the blocking rehearsal altogether. The cameras rolled again. Crew personnel were rushing to hold ready markers as a crucial castmate continued to reread his lines. Exactly, it wasn't laziness. It was an alternative way of thinking, a more casual approach to professionalism that went against the most seasoned intuition. And it wasn't merely pointless annoyance. It appeared that some cast members enjoyed the turmoil. Late starts were seen by them as a natural part of the environment, or worse, as a testament to their star power. Before long, Best's silent displeasure was apparent. There was a tense silence on set when a beautiful eyebrow was arched. It divided people who were more respectful from those who were more casual, forming a kind of professional fault line. Best never publicly reprimanded or yelled at him, to his credit. He didn't yell as he entered the set. Rather, he would become oddly aloof. There's a pause here, a mute look there. There was a storm behind his eyes, and he sensed that the integrity of the act was being compromised. The staff and actors took note. It caused some concern. Some people dismissed it, but nobody was able to ignore it. The off-camera world was occasionally calmer, sometimes more tense, while the audience witnessed sharp one-liners and fast-paced action. Best didn't want to cause a stir. He just wouldn't allow distractions to get in the way of his work. He protected his art ferociously, was on time, and showed respect. Tensions simmered in the shadows backstage. The tug was felt by friendships. Jokes were more incisive. Then there was one individual who came to dominate Best's developing worries. It was more than just a personality conflict. It was a rift in the beautiful, family-friendly oneness that had been promoted. All shows undergo changes over time, but few undergo as much of a transformation as the Dukes of Hazzard did when the laughter started to obscure something else. You almost felt a fracture in the interval between takes. Behind the scenes, after 4 seasons, things weren't quite as lighthearted as Rosco P. Coltrane. The distinction between the actors' on-screen personas and their true selves was starting to get hazy by the time Dukes of Hazzard's 4th season rolled around, and not in a positive manner. James Best was growing weary of the charm that had once characterized the set. Something personal was simmering beneath the surface of all the fast-paced vehicle chases and rural humor. It wasn't abrupt. It was caustic, sluggish, and creeping, and it boiled over one day. Best has put up with a lot. He had a reputation for being patient and disciplined, but these qualities had their limits. Those who worked on the set observed the change, even though he was cautious to never openly criticize other cast members. His manner of carrying himself has changed. He used to brush off his annoyance, but now it was just beneath the surface, evident in his posture, his facial expressions, and even the way he delivered lines that used to make him happy. On what ought to have been a typical day of filming, everything came to a head. Best, as usual, had prepared for the scenario that the cast was working on, which required time and synchronization. Time is perfected, markings are practiced, and lines are memorized. However, one of his co-stars arrived unprepared and was not only late to the call sheet. No enthusiasm, no lines prepared, no apology. According to reports, Best's face froze in shock. He initially made an effort to maintain a professional demeanor. Out of earshot, in the corner, was a hushed chat. But the silence was short-lived. The tone swiftly altered, one crew member said. Voices raised, but not to shout, but to use harsher, colder, more pointed language, a straightforward confrontation. Those in attendance claimed the argument grew intensely personal, though specific remarks were never made public. Best believed his professionalism was being ridiculed since he had devoted his life to the art. For one person, what may have been innocuous banter felt like a slight to Best's values. For him, respect was more important than lines or tardiness. Best accomplished something that was nearly unanticipated that day. He left the set without being angry or huffy. He just set down his script, remained silent, and walked away. Production stopped. There was shock in the air. There was no stunt here. There was no danger here. Everyone watching was shaken by the man's finality as he drew a boundary. Behind closed doors, the producers attempted to patch things up. Meetings and phone conversations were had, but the best was decided. He would come back, but not in the same circumstances and most definitely not in the same room as that co-star. The show changed. Scenes were changed. The shoots were moved. And the cast and crew noticed, but the fans back home didn't. After that, a new normal that mirrored reality was established with silent rules. James Best had decided on something. He would do the task at hand, but he would never again stand by the person who had gone too far. The notion of conflict within the ensemble was nearly unthinkable for those who loved the Dukes of Hazzard. The illusion of family and unity served as the foundation for the program. Each episode featured the characters tussling, laughing, and teasing each other on screen. Even though Sheriff Roscoe made mistakes when out and about, he always had a charming gleam in his eye. Uncle Jesse, Daisy, Luke, Bo, and Enos all seemed to be parts of the same down-home puzzle. Fans were therefore shocked and perplexed when, in the early 2000s, rumors surfaced that James Best had once refused to collaborate with a co-star ever again. With someone so dearly loved, who could have drawn such a harsh line? Speculation, of course, spread. Tom Wopat and John Schneider, the Duke lads themselves, were mentioned by others. Both had a well-known conflict with producers around creative autonomy and compensation. Their brief absence in the 5th season caused a casting change and media attention. Wopat, who had a reputation for being rebellious, was said to be challenging at times. Despite being younger and more approachable, Schneider was still getting used to being famous. Is it possible that one of them stepped on Best's toes? Then Ben Jones appeared, the person who played Cooter Davenport. Jones left the show for a portion of Season 2 due to his own well-documented conflicts with production. He became another suspect in fan theories because of his politics, strong beliefs, and outsider status. Others conjectured about Bach, Catherine. Although she and Best didn't often interact, some people questioned whether press tours or table reads had caused off-screen tensions to flare up. That theory, however, was promptly rejected by those involved in the manufacture. Best had always been friendly with Bach. At one point, she even described him as a pleasure to work with and a true professional. Sonny Schrewer, who portrayed Deputy Enos Strait, was blamed by yet others. It sounded ridiculous. Enos and Rosco were nearly invariably partnered together. There seemed to be genuine chemistry between them. Their relationship appeared sincere, and their scenes were full of humorous banter. Best was frequently referred to by Schrewer as his guru. They recounted happy experiences and smiled for cameras at conventions and interviews. However, this is where the mystery became more complex. Something was lacking behind those smiles. Fans occasionally noticed indications of distance and stiffness. There was calm, no drama on stage, no hot exchanges of words. Controlled, courteous, purposeful quiet. And nobody knew how to interpret it for years. The official narrative started to show cracks as time went on and more cast members revealed themselves in interviews. Unspoken problems between one cast member and the Best were alluded to by a few crew members. Their scenes, which were always short, infrequently emotionally related, and occasionally pieced together from several takes, showed a subtle pattern. The solution was still elusive. Before the truth subtly surfaced, a few more years, a few more interviews, and a great deal of fan perseverance were required. And it wasn't a dramatic moment when it happened. It was straightforward, agonizing, and possibly the most human aspect of all this myth from the South. Most admirers were surprised when the name was revealed. It's not because he was a villain or notorious for causing trouble, but rather because he wasn't. The actor who played the kind, quiet Deputy Enos, Sonny Schrewer, was the co-star James Best had promised never to work with again. It went against everything fans believed to be true. After all, the most recognizable law enforcement team on the show was Rosco and Enos. Viewers loved their moments because they were full of slapstick humor, call-and-response shenanigans, and a sibling camaraderie. However, their relationship was far more complex behind the scenes. Stories from the crew and close friends started to fill in the blanks. There were multiple incidents. There were multiple insults. It was a gradual breakdown of trust, a series of minor incidents that culminated in something that was impossible to ignore. According to sources, respect, or, in Best's opinion, a lack of it, was at the heart of the issue. Schrewer started displaying signs of disengagement, including late entrances, a lack of preparation, and a tendency to joke during rehearsals that Best thought undermined the tone, at a time when Best was giving the role his all, reworking dialogue, honing his delivery, and staying late to perfect his timing. During a shot, Schrewer allegedly made a sarcastic remark regarding Best's commitment to a scene that had previously undergone numerous rewrites. This incident has since become legendary. Although Best didn't react angrily, many around him said that his expression changed. Something inside of him silently shut down, the talk ended, and the smile faded. It might have appeared to be a small argument to other set members, but Best felt it went deeper. In addition to being thoughtless, Schrewer's remark seemed to devalue all of Best's hard work. Everything that, as an actor, he stood for. It was a turning point for a man who was brought up on the old Hollywood hierarchy of reverence and discipline. Best made it plain in private. He refused to let Schrewer in on any more sequences. From that point on, directors were told to circumvent it. The slight separation that developed between Rosco and Enos on screen was missed by the majority of supporters. However, it was present in the blocking instructions, the production notes, and the script revisions, quiet, purposeful, and everlasting. The rift persisted years later, even after the show's conclusion and reunion specials brought the group back together. The two shared stages at fan events, but they seldom ever spoke to each other. Schrewer continued to honor Best in interviews, frequently referring to him as a mentor. For his part, Best never mentioned names. He did so in silence, upholding a philosophy that few ever saw and even fewer comprehended. Screaming matches and scandals were not the foundation of this feud. It was sadder and quieter than that. Misalignment, conflicting principles, and a profound disappointment that was irreparable shattered the link. It didn't feel like gossip when the truth was revealed. It seemed to be a glimpse into the soul of a man who devoted himself fully to his work and just asked for the same in return. Almost everyone was shocked when the name was revealed. It was precisely because he appeared so innocent, even adored, rather than because he was notoriously dramatic or demanding. Deputy Enos Strait himself, Sonny Schrewer, was the castmate James Best discreetly declined to collaborate with again. It didn't make sense to most supporters. Rosco and Enos were inseparable on screen. Together, they ruined vehicle chases, completed each other's sentences, and provided Hazzard County with countless moments of comedic relief. Their love seemed sincere and their connection uncomplicated. However, something was falling apart behind those giggles. The specifics were kept under wraps for years. At conventions, both actors made appearances. They posed for pictures together. For the fans, they grinned. However, when it came time to work, particularly in the later seasons, they hardly ever appeared together. They also shared fewer close-ups and less banter. One always produced a line, while the other was barely off-frame. And slowly, the truth started to surface. Several cast members and crew members claimed that minor issues were the starting point for the conflict. Being somewhat new to Hollywood, Schrewer approached acting in a lighter, more informal manner. He made jokes during the rehearsal process. Sometimes he was late for blocking. Additionally, Best felt that his occasional riffing off of the script during takes undermined the scene's tone. Best, on the other hand, approached each shot with the gravity of a theatrical production. He annotated his scripts and made rhythmic adjustments, and practiced motions until they became fluid. He trained with Lee Strasberg and performed alongside Hollywood heavyweights during his decades-long career in cinema and television. He anticipated a certain amount of planning and, most importantly, deference. Schrewer allegedly casually said that he didn't care about the little things during a sequence that Best had spent a lot of time reworking. Even though it was a joke, Best didn't find it funny. Those in the vicinity claimed that he nodded firmly, remained silent, and left the set soon after. That was the time. Best made a final decision after that. He and Schrewer would no longer have direct scenes together. Taken by surprise, the production crew discreetly adjusted. Scripts were changed, blocked, and rearranged. Sequences were pieced together by the show's editors to create the appearance of cohesiveness. And it worked, for the most part. Those who worked on the show saw the split clearly, but the audience never did. And eventually, even the most devoted followers started to pick up on the subtle divergence. The rift was never discussed in public by either actor. In public, Schrewer kept referring to Best as a mentor. For his part, Best refrained from talking about the issue at all. He named Catherine Bach, Sorrel Book, and Denver Pyle as his favorite co-stars when asked. Sonny Schrewer, though hardly ever. Words could not express what their silence conveyed. This was neither a scandal nor a blowout. It was something far more intimate, a silent betrayal of confidence, a boundary crossed that would never be restored. And that was crucial in the life of James Best, a man characterized by honor, self-control, and a profound regard for his trade. Tributes to James Best, who died in 2015 at the age of 88, came from all over the world. In addition to Sheriff Rosco P. Coltrane, fans recalled him as a cherished friend, father, painter, and educator. He was described in the same way by admirers, students, and co-stars. Unforgettable, generous, gifted, and really professional. Rosco is still one of the most enduring characters from the Dukes of Hazzard, one of television's most recognizable shows to this day. However, James Best's actual impact extends much beyond his catchphrases and police car. In a field that frequently overlooked them, he was a man who valued artistry, discipline, and respect. He created a figure that endured in the hearts of generations by giving a silly part a sense of gravity and making it his own. Although it was a part of his biography, the feud that surrounded his time on the show was never the main focus. And maybe that's what adds a human touch to his legacy. Best had no desire to vent his frustrations. He didn't want attention or retribution. He merely established a line and firmly maintained it, and let his art do the talking. Finding out the facts about the rift gives the show fresh depth for devoted viewers. It serves as a reminder that genuine feelings exist behind the camera, even in a world based on imagination and nostalgia. Those who bring us the most joy can also bear the most burdens. Ultimately, James Best's story is not one of resentment. It has to do with honor. He was always able to entertain. His influence, both on and off screen, is still felt in the performing industry and beyond. And the truth he politely and quietly took with him is still a potent lesson in sticking up for what's important.